connected business from last time. We're talking about passion. If you can remember it all, you're going to have to remember it because I'm not going to back up and recount what I was getting into. But ordinary people must believe, they are driven to believe, that there is a distinction in passion, such as a distinction in the passions that would drive a sports enthusiast or a mystic. But they're cut from the same. But here's life again at work. No, it's just, there's no different. And if that's too strong, they're cut from the same cloth. Except for this. Saying it's cut from the same cloth, the cloth never gets cut. Men believe, they're made to believe that there's a difference in the passion that will drive them out to a strip joint or to a football game or take them to church or a course in philosophy. And yet, they will also insist, and they can't put the two together, they will also insist that there is a kind of sequential order. If you tried to say what I was concluding last time, that if you tried to tell ordinary minds, wait a minute, the kind of passion that runs ordinary life from football games to the church, to ordinary religious activity, will not get you where you actually itch. And they would say, well, it's got to. Because if not, you're saying it's something absolutely, literally transcendental, absolutely out of our grasp. And that can't be. So they're driven to believe, on one hand, made to believe, and to say that there is a distinction between the kind of passions that drive ordinary human activities and those of a higher order, such as religious, humane, intellectual feelings. Okay? And then they turn right around and go, what were you talking about? Did you lose your place? All right, and then they'll also say, well, just after that, see, they'll also say, in response, if you said, wait a minute, the kind of passions ordinarily available will not get the job done. You can go and hide out in a monastery and do all sorts of drugs or exercises, and that kind of passion, no matter that it seems of a higher order, will not work. And so it's got to work, because there has to be some kind of sequential order to the flow of human passions, from the crude to the highest. And they've got to all be available. All right, one other thing before we get to the items. How about this? Since everybody likes, you want new information, things that you never heard of, and now you can hear of them because you're about to, unless you leave the room. And you hear of it and you think, well, that can't be, yet you just heard it. And you think, well, it could be. What if all of life, if we tried to surmise right quick, ad hocing as I go,
yeah.
Dividing up into men, and they're pondering the finiteness of human life. One group would say, or normally the religious, what to be called, they'd say this life is really not much. It's probably a curse. It's something for us to struggle through, something for us to bear. And the next life will be the true life, the true payoff. So that's one. Another group might be the humanist of the world, who might say, we don't know whether there's another life or not. There's absolutely no proof of it. And so if you're going to try and find a payoff for life, you must do it now. This is all we have. And sort of a side shoot of that, I guess, would be the devil-may-carist. They'd say you only got one time around. You know, to hell with it, you might as well live it up and get fat and ugly and lazy. See, if they say it beforehand, like, let's do it on purpose, I don't know, it seems to make them feel better. Like later when they look in the mirror, they go, well, I meant to be. And then there could be a smaller group that would say, the hell with it all. They're really extremely fringe, their name taken into account. And then the largest group, perhaps, would be those who by and large do not think about it, but if you ask them, what do you think about the finiteness of life? That we live and then we die, we work for all this stuff, and they'd probably say, well, I don't know. Sometimes I try and be religious. I try to adopt the philosophical attitude, or I try to adopt some religious attitude, but, I don't know, and I wish you hadn't brought it up. I don't know. When I get older, or every time I get nervous or I feel sick, I go back to church. Or I do pray, and hell, I don't know what God I'm praying to, but I don't know. It's just, that's kind of the middle class of the world. There's another class that no one's ever heard of, so therefore it doesn't exist. But it could be. How about that? It could be a class. There's none of those. There's one you've never heard of it. But I've already, the descriptions I made, you could try and drag them, moosh them together, but you should not take your peas and put them against your potatoes. Well, not unless you're grown and know what you're doing. You just should not. And especially you shouldn't kind of, take your fork and moosh them together. If God had intended the potatoes and peas to be all mooshed together, they'd be mooshed together. You go out and pick them out of the ground, they'd already be mooshed. So don't try and believe that they can be mooshed. Leave that to serious philosophers, people with professional training. It'd be a group. How about this? But you got to be able to extract all hostility, all rancor. A group, no such group. But what if there were? And there could be, because I can describe them. Of people that looked around at the finiteness of life and thought, sort of the life, screw you to life. Like, what's the purpose in giving humans the knowledge that life is finite? What's the purpose of it if we can't do anything about it? How about with no particular hostility life? Screw you. Screw you. Also, you could take it as somewhat of an invitation, like, would you like to respond to that and tell me? But the screw you is simply sort of a side dish to the blatant fact hidden within the question that I presented, that someone would ask life, why, for what purpose did you give man a mind? And hence, one of the first things he thought about, one of these things people think about, is the finiteness of life. What was the purpose in letting man know that? And then not only can you not do anything about it, but no one can understand, no one knows what happens next, as witnessed by those first 3 or 4 groups that he just got through naming. And I covered them. I covered them with no prejudice, no hostility, did I? Exactly. I just pointed it out. So you could ask life after you said, how about, screw you. A good-natured way, of course. But you say, how about screw this? Why did you let us know? What was the purpose? Just tell me, what was the purpose in letting us be aware of the finiteness of life and then not tell us why? We can't do anything about it. We don't know. We can't get past it. What's the purpose of us knowing about it? Now, I'm not going to stay on this. I got important items to read. But do you understand, I'm not even speaking about death. That is almost irrelevant. That's not it. Because you and the beavers will die. That's not it. The beavers don't know it. Every other thing that the human mind does, you can see. I'm sure on your own, but now you get glimpses. Anything that just seems to be all the way from suspect and questionable to something that you might have considered downright open to criticism years ago, you can begin to see from some sort of view that there's some purpose for this, or you can see some use for it, even if you don't seem to have a use for it. Other groups of people, relatively sane, they live as long as you do, seem to find some use in it. But there's one thing that no one can find any purpose for, no ordinary person. What is the purpose? And the mind has conjured up all these imaginary things all the way from morality to fashion to good music to bad music. All of civilization invented from here. Springs from here. Without this, there is none. Without this, there is no knowledge of the finiteness of life. Everything else you can come up with some sort of reasonable, at least speculation. Or you can see that in operation other people seem to find it beyond speculation, that they find some reason for things that you may even find problematic. But no one has any idea of what's the purpose in us knowing about the finiteness of life. To know about it be one thing. All right, suddenly your mind, everybody else's collective goes, well, life is finite. And like anything else, I assure you, Mickey, Minnie, Adam and Eve, Ken and Barbie, when they first heard that, they went, okay. And they took it as a comma. Life is finite. They heard that and they went, okay. And they were waiting for what's the rest? There was no rest. I'll get to my attorney as soon as this is over tonight, and I'm going to try and get this copyrighted. So don't go out and try on your own to start a religion based on Screw You Life. So I thought of that. Series 93, 112, items 1 through 56. All right, if you'll all calm down and we can get all the contestants back on the stage, we'll announce the finals. List. The second runner-up is the man who wouldn't take no for an answer. The third runner-up is the man who wouldn't take yes for an answer. And our winner is the man who wouldn't take reality as an answer. The mind wants something to latch on to, but are you going to let it latch on to you? So, said a man, are we to then consider the normal knowledge of the mind to be little more than Socratic irony? In a land where no knowledge can pass for quite adequate knowledge, there will civilization and routine men be found. Is that all, sir? May we go home now? The official city sculptor and ad hoc corner and rough edge chiseler states, no man with attributes shall ever possess a daughter of mine. Can we leave now? One way to spot the intellectually civilized is that they try and learn about themselves, they'll study everything but. Related el noto. Talking about oneself is not the same as studying oneself. No editorializing, please. Carouselian comfort. Look here, dear, have no fear. The mind was made to run in circles. A range of no regrets. Horsey, horsey. Who's got the horsey? I don't care as long as I ain't the horsey. The more sophisticated becometh the king, the more he tries to make your execution proclamation sound like a public service announcement. And done for your own good. Just because you don't know what you're doing doesn't mean that anyone else does. Thus did one mortal voice declare, man is more than his mind, more than his mouth, more than his several physical appetites. And the moon responded, perhaps, but without some individual initiative and growth, not much more. Somebody take that down sometime. Ordinary memory plays an important part in the mental life of a thinker. It allows him to reconsume his own waste products. A man notes, the more I understand what this is all about, the more it seems to me that the term a thinker is severely lacking and not truly definitive. Sir, I agree. But if you understood still more, you'd further realize that no word is adequately descriptive. The discoverable laws of the universe are just metaphors for the undiscoverable ones. One man asked of his foresight, given a choice, which would you choose? A historian, an economist, or a psychologist? And the twinkle in his mind replied, poison. Anything in an invented world that is not correct can be cured by criticism. In fact, even added to. 3 fingers are always required to poke reality in the eye. And as you leave, ask yourself, given a choice, which would you choose? After having saved up his money, one man could not decide whether to invest in typing lessons or to buy a correcting typewriter. Around these parts, many of the living believe that the dead have it made. Meanwhile, a megalithic legend of literary mythology. On one world, only the living were allowed to write nonfiction, the deceased, the alternative. Uh-oh. And lo, the cry went out, let there be more talk and less entertainment. Thus it was, for example, that Bach was terminated and critics brought online. And they contentedly sighed. History bears us out once again. As behind their backs, history chuckled as it straightened up its mourning coat, awaiting indeed to bear them out and away, but in a manner not intended by their words. Sang a man near a willow, if home is where the heart is, then my head is in my heart. Then looking back on it all, the young Jack in us all enthralled. I should have known that days long gone saw the last of the magical beans. Flash. Boffo headlines make comeback. When many mortal performers reach maturity and see where the production's headed, they'll make their voice sound real gruff and say, somebody get my agent on the phone, and I mean now. Okay, gang. The good news is that everyone's been held over for another week. And of course, that's also the bad news. No matter your expectations, and no matter how it seems that things ought to be, there are no conditions possible under which the collective will ever mount a campaign against stagnation. Item: believe it or breathe into a burlap bag. In lands where it's lumpy, it's the status quo that makes things go. Notice to all players, so long as you continue to sit at the table and take up space, do not waste the dealer's time by interrupting him to say, but that's not possible. A man's mind is either his friend or it's not. That's the title of this item. A man's mind is his friend. If you don't believe it, just ask it. A man's mind is not his friend. If you don't believe it, just ask him. A question. That's the heading of this one. Why doesn't sarcasm, cynicism, and irony work on children? Thus did one man reflect. Based upon my many ornamentations, I consider myself a Baroque masterpiece. And his mind spoke up. Baroque, did you say? Are you spelling that B-R-O-K-E? How it is. Mystics believe it's more complicated than it is, while ordinary people don't know what it is. And that's how it is. Honor, a kind of post-survival approach to survival. A man asked a thinker, a striver for greater consciousness, this question: is the payoff of what you work for a spiritual experience? And the thinker nodded. Then, continued the man, is it also a psychological one? Again, the striver nodded. All right, press the questionnaire. Is the experience artistic? Nod, nod, went the thinker. Then is it emotional? Nod on, nodded the thinker. So then, asked the man, is it also intellectual? And the one doing the nodding finally spoke. Just how long do you have to keep this up? There is no honor among the unconscious. Hey, hold up, how about this? Here's how it is from yet another view. When it comes to matters fancy and esoteric, here's how it works. Everybody knows everything about everything that they want to know everything about. Well, at least anger gives the mind something to do. Have you ever seen a camel drumming its fingers in boredom? Take a number, take a seat. Aches and pains, aches and pains. I've got feelings and I've got brains. Take a number, take a seat. One man tried to make it a habit never to mentally fly on any plane that he couldn't hijack. Cheap men worry about the price. Really cheap men worry about what cheap men will think. After a certain man had displayed signs of what could have been diagnosed as mental problems, a gentleman stepped forward offering to help, giving the verbal assurance, "I am a licensed professional psychiatrist." But the man declined with this explanation: "Just as I would not let my dog be treated, even in minor affairs such as being given shots or having his nails trimmed, by a technician, but rather only by a real veterinarian, so too do I feel as regards any possible attention paid to my mind, and I must in all candor say to you, good sir, I have yet to meet a real veterinarian." Later over dinner that evening, the rebuffed mental professional was thus comforted by his spouse. There, dear, one of the many benefits of being a cuckoo doctor is that whatever anyone might say to you unpleasant, you can just look at them as a potential patient and then ask yourself, what care I for the opinion of a crazy person? He then felt much better and was glad again that he had married himself, mentally speaking. Life announced to some guys, those moderately successful will be permitted to moderately perish. Those who, in fact, know whether life ever speaks in slang or not actually know a good deal. And a gentleman inquires, do you mean that such men know a good deal, or that they know a good deal when they see it? The mind has nothing to lose. Think about it. The mind has nothing to lose. And if true, what should that tell you about what it originally possessed? One man said, a reality that neither whines nor roars is the reality for me. Pause. One man said, a reality that neither whines nor roars is the reality for me. And reality replied, when wilt thou open thine eyes and see things as they actually be, O ye two-legged, upright creature, homo chumpo? Pause number 2. A man said, okay, a perception of reality that neither whines nor roars. There's the perception for me. And kindly young reality sagely nodded its smiling head. No more pauses at this time. Everyone believes that they should be a different person, but what if the actual challenge is just to become a person? Proposed city motto for one imaginary metropolis. If we knew the truth, we could tell the truth. If we knew the truth, we could shut up. The moon of one local liver was talking to several of the meteorites around a certain brain and noted, Being cute is being crass, and life told me to kiss my ass. And his conversational companion interrupted, don't you mean to say that life told you to kiss its ass? It makes no sense the way you said it. And the hepatic satellite replied, I know. That's what I said, but life insisted that I had once again missed the point. And I didn't really want to push the matter, at least it'd tell me something even worse. You know, if you know what I mean. And his buddy nodded, hey, tell me about it. The family motto of man. Many men's minds love to have a fit. Daddy, are we a lot like men? Yes, son, a lot. A man striving to be more conscious and mentally alive holds not just a season ticket to frustration, but by God, box seats. A man stops to wonder, how comes it that you can enjoy hearing something that actually should sound pessimistic? But the difference between something that sounds like an obstacle and understanding what it really is the distinction between ordinary thought and increased consciousness. And yet another man notes, are you sure that even the term increased consciousness sufficiently describes the aim of such effort as this? No, sir, it does not, but we've been through this already now, haven't we? No. A civilized gent mused. The mind being linear is what keeps us in line. If words don't mean more than they say, then neither do men. Now for the official question of the day. Do people, in truth, know where they've been, or, in fact, know where they're going? Forget the prizes, forget the hostesses in low-cut gowns. The game will forever go on just as long as there are questions. A man mused, what if people actually know more than they think they do? And his house cat promptly assured him, nah. Just being alive is enough to make a lot of people wish they were dead. Why did you make me repeat that one? Weren't you here last week when I read it the first time? Well, yes, I was actually, but I was also partially deceased at the time. And now, prodded by the natural curiosity of people along this line, we present a glimpse of the behind-the-scenes working of activities such as this. There is none. A man's superconsciousness one day attempted to whisper to him this. There is a name for every place except where we want to go. And there are words for all human efforts except the ones required to get us there. And since the man was afraid that his mind might be listening in to the conversation, to throw it off the track, he sarcastically replied to consciousness, hey, thanks heaps for the encouragement. And soon, the reassuring snoring endemic to minds ablaze and adrift blanketed the once again peaceful and fitful kingdom known as man. Every few minutes, one man would say to his mind, where have you been? A man said, one good thing about extrinsic drugs is that they never cost too much. And when they are more expensive than you'd planned on, they make up for it by doing more than you'd expected. A man said, one nice thing about extrinsic drugs is that they never cost too much. And the neat thing about your own produced variety is that they are eternally underpriced and always available. One man said, The pleasant aspect of being your own pharmacist is that you're your own pharmacist. If words are the shadow of reality, then what are the figures standing twixt metaphors and the sun? Revamped and resubmitted. How can something that represents something else have within its own self symbolism? The number one answer is simple. It has 4 letters and 25 perfect synonyms beginning with each of the other letters in the alphabet. Aren't you glad some of these we move real fast? That wasn't an editorializing. The magic has gone out of our relationship, said one man to his mind. And it replied, you mean you've been calling this a relationship? If consciousness could scoff, then all scoffers would be conscious, I guess. A lad asked his dad, do the gods not have cars just so they won't run the risk of ever having bumpers? Out of the mouths of babes oft-times come words which makes tongues and lips say, hey, you're older than you look. Being able to understand the mind is not the same as taming and retraining it. But it's better than nothing and having herpes. And so, an out-of-doorsy way of thinking about it. In this, it's like your present mind becomes a duck blind to pave the way for the introduction of newly invented flying fowl who neither exist nor not exist. And like a mythical god of albatrosses, never lights nor rest. In an apparent exasperated huff, one man's mind turned on him and cried, well, just what the hell is it you want from me? And in conclusion, might I add, quack, quack. This next item is captioned, I see squared, colon, imaginary conversation with a 2 stuck on it up at the end. Hey, if it weren't for civilization, we wouldn't have anything to worry about. Hey, yourself, if it weren't for civilization, we couldn't worry. No. And now for an entry christened Query Cubed. What's worse than a sailor who finds himself in a leaking lifeboat? One who doesn't realize he was born therein mentally. And now, if I may be permitted to question you, off the books, ask yourself, how can any living human being with a running mind believe that some ideas can actually be unrelated to other certain ideas? How can they look at the normal operations of their own mind and think such a thing? And oh yeah, a reminder. Harold Cheapskate, that broker in Ideas Gone Public, is still looking for investors. A teacher told the class, your mind is born like a clean slate. And a kid in the rear rubbed his nose and thought, she must be speaking in an alien tongue. Would thou seekest lessons in the law from a thief? Wouldst thou solicit health advice from the terminally ill? Or thou'st alive and human? Then yes, you bet you would. Hey, wait a minute. I can't believe this. You mean you believed otherwise? Jeez, what do you people think the mind's all about anyway? More of the substance behind the words revealed for your edification and late driving safety. Reality is never ironic, just its observers dense. A certain man said, words make me sick, but not near as much as thinking about them. And some certain words says, men make us sick, but that's another story. In the attempt to stay stable, in control, and to offer its owner some semblance of sanctity, minds tell men that the particulars of what they think is important. And in a way, I guess it is. Sort of. And so, when it gets down to it, the truth needs no sober nay. Although not mentioned in Who's Who, one man says he's now listed in What's This? Select one of the following. 1. A mind's got to do something. 2. A mind's got to do what a mind's got to do. 3. A mind's got to do what a mind's got to do and also tell you what it's got to tell you about what it's got to do. Contestants' secret tip. Only a chump will pick one of the above and believe he actually picked one. And an audience member asked, well, if it's so secret, then why did you tell us about it? Hey, dig it. Did it do you any good? And that answers that. One man's latest theory. Famous people are miserable people. That's why they're famous. Myth in G major, listing number 222. Initially, originally, in the beginning even, the man asked man if he would like to go on a trip. And ever since then, well, you know how it's been ever since then. All serious warnings, except those regarding health, are a joke. And even those are suspect. Spatial reality reconsidered. Are higher states of consciousness actually higher or radically lateral? Nautical news you shouldn't refuse. A man holding an anchor doesn't want anyone else to go anywhere. So pondered one man. Is what we attempt the actualization of man's noblest potentials or of his modest ones? But one with the blessed itch doesn't care which. He couldn't care or differentiate if he wanted to. Don't screw with me, I'll read it again. All right, I won't do it. If you're just going to end up ordinary anyway, it's probably better to just go ahead and stay that way to begin with. When men were given minds, it was as though they were set out to sail on a sea of wondrous possibilities in boats ablaze. Though the mind is in charge of reason, you can't reason with it. Dancing with yourself is no sin. Not realizing it is. And the church sang out, let the boats sail on. The burning boats sail on. Well, why not start at the back? Who cares? What difference does it make? When men were given minds, it's as though they were set out to sail upon seas of absolute wondrous possibilities. In boats that were on fire. I thought maybe some of you would like that. At least for something new rather than an itch you can't scratch. Which, has a certain kind of pessimistic aroma to it. Or to say that men, especially those given over to artistic inclinations, want to say, there's something in me, something I want to say, something I want to give, something I want to reveal to the world, and I just can't get it out. Not everyone seems to be able to identify with that one. Especially those, shall we say, of limited talents. But how about this? It is indeed, although I guess it is, I know it's a certain kind of poetic license, but if you can think, you got the license. Just some of you never learned to drive. That given the mind is literally, all right, not literally, is setting man out to sail on an absolute wondrous, singular, astounding ocean of possibilities. There are no other possibilities on this planet. There are no other creatures that you can see. There's no reality you can see wherein the creatures in any way have possibility. They do not. There is no such thing as possibility. You see a birch acorn, and you know it's going to grow up to be a birch. You see a baby lynx, and it's going to grow up to be a lynx. There's no possibility. It's not even going to grow up to be some sort of exceptionally famous lynx. It's going to grow up to be a lynx. There's nothing else to say. You'd be an idiot. There are no possibilities. There's no way to sing the praises of any sort of animal, plant life on this planet and to say that they, as beautiful as they may be, and as wildly as they may be at the intrinsic, instinctive level, there's no way to try and conjure up, besides some sort of absolutely meaningless pseudo-metaphorical poetry, to say, to pick out some animal, an eagle, a tree, a rose, and try to sing about it being set sail on a sea of wondrous possibilities. I mean, Jesus, you're cuckoo. There are no possibilities, period. Save one, man. And without a mind, he got no possibilities. Any individual. So once given minds operating at some ordinary level, it is as though man has been set out to sail singularly on a sea of wondrous possibilities, dash, in boats ablaze. If you can hear that, that is neither pessimistic, sarcastic, it's not downtown dumbass optimistic. It is descriptive. That by having this, you're set out on an absolute singular sea that no other creature has. A sea of astounding possibilities, because you can imagine crap you can never do. You can imagine places you'll never visit. So on that basis, it is absolutely wondrous, marvelous, astounding. Except, it's like the boats on fire. Did I lay on the first part too much? Can we all stop a minute? Think about this. You've got this wondrous gift, this miraculous possibility right here. That and only that. That itself is like it's a boat, a vehicle that's been put up on a absolutely astounding, wondrous, staggering, delightful sea of possibilities. Just look at the ocean, you don't even know where it goes. You don't know if there's an end to it. And that just, dash. Except you're born and you're put in a boat that's on fire. Not pessimistic, but think about it. It may take 60 years for it to burn down to the gunwalkles and you sink. Hey, if it wasn't that, it would have been Gruber's syndrome to take you down anyway. But think about it. Here you are on this wondrous sea that you look out and you could think to begin with. You could marvel at the good fortune of man. Meaning no offense. You could peek over the side at our little dolphin brothers, our little crab brothers, maybe a carp or two. But you sit there and you realize at an early age, what a marvelous, unique. But if you take this picturization, which I am suggesting tonight is worthy of some consideration, there you are. One more time, this is not an attack. It's not any kind of negative observation. But there you are. That you can look out and forget the first part about tonight. That is, of knowing the finiteness of life. See, if you're ordinary, you go, wait a minute. This is going to give me a headache if I try to put it together. Yeah. Sir, with a head like that, it deserves steak. But you picture, what a marvelous. Here it is. I've got, let's say you're 5 or 6 years old. And you begin to realize this, and you think, now look out, the horizons are unlimited. And if you ask a teacher or another grown person, they go, that's right. God, I could be anything I want to be. That's true. I can think about things. That's true. That's why you got imagination. Ooh, I can paint elephants and color them purple. Yes, you can. I can look at a brochure and see sidewalk cafes in Paris, and I may never go there. But when I have a little more experience, and I've been to cafes down in Snellville, I can later kind of put it together, and I can hear an accordion playing. And I can picture myself sitting there, and I may never go. And an adult says, that's the human mind. Or I can picture, they can't get rockets with men on them to actually get outside of our solar system and come back. Yet, no, they can't. Well, I can sort of imagine how it might be done. And the teacher said, well, that's good. That's where we get ahead. You can imagine. You say, and that's fine. Except, you sit there on this, pushed out, cast off on this sea of wondrous possibilities, except the bloody boat's on fire. Did I get in the wrong place? Was this the thing about sailing? I thought this was the Boaters Convention. Does that have anything to do with anything? Then what are people trying to do? Well, certain forms of drugs like alcohol, you could say, to carry along the picturization as you try to calm the flame down. Maybe put it out. It's a bit more, I guess we could say, show a bit more of health consciousness and trying to piss on it right there in public. Pour a little alcohol. You could always fall on your knees and pray for rain. Or maybe just pray that the gods will go, all right, your boat, and go, and the fire go out, and then you drift on and be all right. You could look at it in a sense that people, ordinary people now, all the way from ordinary, civilized, intellectual, sophisticated people, to those who believe they're trying to do something a bit more extraordinary, is that they all have this awareness. They do take into account, not necessarily verbally because it's not required, that they are a possessor of, or by my picture, they are in a wondrous vehicle. Or it's in them the same thing, this. And it's this and only that opens up a realm of any possibilities. Any. They're the only ones that can even think about a possibility. Whether you ever get it or not, you can think about, I wish I'd finally get rich and famous to where when I'd walk down the street people would recognize me. Even if you don't get it, you understand, you're the only person that could ever imagine it. So at least you got that much on an otter. I'm guessing. A moose. They don't ever think about, boy, I wish I was rich and famous. So you understand, even though that most people never get rich and famous, at least you could think about it. And a poor old moose, you ask a moose, did you even ever think about it? And it go, never even thought about it. And then it's too late, for him to catch up and never try to get rich and famous. So you've got no more likelihood probably than you or me. But at least you could think about it. So now you've got the awareness to some degree that people know that, which is why they sing such great paeans to the gods about, and they don't call it this because that's the thing talking, but we're back to why man for so long has religiously, mystically, poetically, thanked the gods on a good day. When the potato crop came in and the carp didn't jump out of the water and eat all of his crop, the people sing, oh, how great it is to be blessed with a soul. How great it is to be master of the beast, to be in charge of all the other little creatures, to be nature's highest achievement on this planet. Of course, don't look behind you. Told you not to look. They sing the praises knowing that this thing is unique. They always want to point somewhere else, anywhere but the right place. My soul, my spirit, somewhere that I touch the fingers of me and the real God, the model for Michelangelo, the big guy. Then some way I become one with the cosmic Con Edison, and the spark goes. They can talk about it down here. They recognize that this is a supreme, unique possibility. But then, no one can face the fact that they are dancing with themselves. Because after that, then you've got to get into the fact that I'm pointing out tonight. You're set out on this miraculous sea that no other creature can experience. Put in your own little boat. You got your own mind. As far as you don't have to share it. You can try to pull up alongside somebody. Say, what's your sign? But you got your own boat. You did nothing to earn it. You didn't have to pay for it. No license. You're born and you got this boat. And thus far I could get people to go along. Yes, that is true. This wondrous thing of life. The infinite, even though life may be itself finite, maybe, but at least this thing can dream of infinite possibilities. That's why it can dream of a life after death, and etc. Yes, I'm with you. Right on, right on. And I say, but if you carry that picture, you got to go past the dash. You're set a sail, given your own boat, and pushed out. Set out on a sea of wondrous possibilities. El Daisho, and a boat ablaze. If they'd go that far, then they'd go, what is this, a horse act? No, oh, I see. What they would mean is, God, that answers some of it. You understand? It seems as though that life giveth. How's that Bible verse go? Life giveth, and then life goes, sucker. Is that it? No, it's something like that. You know how it goes. It's like here you are set out here with this great thing, this unique possibility. And then it seems as though, yeah, but something's wrong. Well, I just told you, you're set a sail on this sea of wondrous possibilities. And a boat on fire. Of course, those of you now that are getting good and realize that there's more to it, it's a hint about something to do with it. It's not just some kind of attempt to stomp around the stage. Of course, I didn't wait for applause, but the thing was, the real trick is, you're supposed to say, all right, horsey, what's 1, 1, and 2? And see, now I did it. I hate to interrupt this, but if you notice, I got it right. I went, well, no, don't applaud. Is there something beyond that? There's something you can do with that information. Because how about this? Ordinary people, if they went along this far with that, well, they go along anyway, but with this kind of picturization, then you realize, well, if you talk to them or if they wanted to respond, if we say, all right, we've got a few minutes for audience participation, what do you think about this? What does that bring to mind? Then the first thing that ordinary mind would think, well, is to get the blaze in the boat put out. I know what you mean. It's this, You know, I do keep thinking, God, this thing just opens up almost infinite, miraculous, cosmic possibilities. And yet, it's like, I know what you mean, the boat on fire. You know, I can't seem to, I don't know, get it all together, get my act together, pull it all together, get them all ducks in a burlap bag, or however it goes. And so, if I say, well, you know, what does it bring to mind? They think, all right, to use your terminology, I like it. I'm speaking for them. How nice. They say, all right, the trick is now, what we need to do, I mean, it's obvious, is get the fire in the boat put out. Oh, really? Oh, really? You're sure of that? Well, it has to be. All right. Beyond the theatrical sarcasm right there at the end, how about this? What else could the ordinary mind say if it took this picturization? And you said, all right, where do we go from here? And they say, well, that does explain. I like that it's a new kind of map. I like it. And I said, all right, what do you think we should do? What could it say? What would be the reasonable next step for any mind would be, well, what we need to do is, individually, each of us, I see what you get. We got to stop the fire here in the boat. I mean, it's our little boat, but it's, that's going to kill us. It's going to sink us. It distracts us. We should be out sailing. We should be out exploring. But you're right. This thing just it's smoking. It's always burning, and I always knew something was wrong. That's it. We got to put the fire out. Are you sure? And again, ordinary mind, if I said that, and it goes, what other possibility? Well, all right, I'll give you a hint. There's at least one more. But it is, all right, I'll give you two hints. It's above sea level.